the different press folks.
Oh, okay, here we go. Hi.
So Rhonda, you want to start here? Or are we waiting still? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. It's an honor to have you here. My name is James Michael Lafferty. I'm the CEO of Fine Hygienic Holding. I will give you a quick 2-minute story. 20 years ago, I was the CEO of Procter & Gamble in Poland, and we had several years of record results. And after 3 years of records, my team started to doubt themselves. They said, it's impossible that we can have 4 great years. It's just not possible. You have to have a downtime. And I struggled and struggled with how I could convince them that we could still try to succeed. And I was watching the news one night on my cable in Warsaw, Poland, and I fell asleep on the couch, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, through the intervention of fate, of God, of karma, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there was a news program on from the United States, and one of the prominent US journalists was interviewing this blind man who had just climbed Mount Everest. And I watched this guy speak, and I listened to his story, and I started to cry, and I said, that's the man, and I need to meet this guy. And so I called friends in the US, and a couple of weeks later, Eric and I had a phone call, and 3 months later, he was in Warsaw, Poland, talking to my team. And after he spoke to my team, we had an all-time record again, 4 straight years. And after that, we started to work together, and he spoke to many of my teams. And we also climbed a bit together. We've done some rock climbing in Philippines, and we both summited Kilimanjaro in 2005 with 5 blind climbers, and at that time set the world record for the most number of blind summiters on one of the 7 summits. What I owe Eric is one important thing in my life, which was since the day we've met, I have never said the words "I can't" in the last 15 years. He takes the words out of your vocabulary. If you say "I can't" after meeting this man, there's something wrong. And that's the story. I am proud to have him here speaking in Dubai to our organization. And I'm very proud to call him a friend. And the thing I'm probably most proud of is to say, there's been no greater human being I've ever met than Erik Wainmeier. So, thank you. Eric?
Sure. Thank you. That's an honor. Thanks, Jim. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, there you go. You can hand to the group here, but nice. So, I should say that as a blind person, you have the same dreams as everyone else. It's not like you're any different from anyone else. But you just need to figure out other ways of getting there. So when I was a kid, I went blind, and I did not want to learn, how to use a cane or how to learn Braille. And I got taken rock climbing. And I found that instead of using my eyes, I had to feel my way up the rock face. And it made me realize that, okay, like all of our journey is different, right? We have to figure out our own way up the rock face or up the mountain. And so I started using a cane and started learning Braille, how to read with my fingers, and how to use computers that spoke and different kinds of technologies. And I found a place for blindness, and I started moving forward and trying to build the map that we are all trying to use to navigate our lives. And what I describe that map is I call it a no barriers life. And that life is trying to look at what are the different pieces that make up that map in our lives. For me, one of them that Jim pointed out is having a great rope team. In the mountains, you're roped together with the people around you. So if one person falls, everyone falls. That's the way I've climbed a lot of mountains, actually roped together with the people. So if I fall as the blind guy, I'll drag everyone down. So you throw yourself down on your ice axe and you stop the team. And for me, that's a great metaphor, because as a blind person, you're not really always doing things alone. You do receive some help. Like when I climbed Everest, I had 13 friends. When I kayaked the Grand Canyon, I had a team of 9 folks that were all kayaking with me. So there is that rope team concept, and that idea that we're interdependent on each other, and I love that. And so, yeah, it's been fun to be a part of Jim's teams around the world, and to be a part of all these climbing teams. And, you know, people ask me, they say, you know, is there any advantages or disadvantages to climbing blind? And I think it's, you know, obviously, if you were being analytical, you would say there are disadvantages, but I don't really look at it that way. I think you make every part of your life an advantage, and you work it. And so for me, I've been able to find ways of hiking mountains, of rock climbing, of climbing frozen waterfalls, of skiing, of paragliding, solo, of mountain biking, all kinds of activities. I've found a way to be a father, to be married, to have a spouse, to have a great family. So anyway, there are always ways forward, right? There are always ways through those barriers. And so I've spent a lot of my life trying to figure out how to navigate through those barriers and how to help others break through those barriers as well. I started a nonprofit in the US called No Barriers, and we work with about 13,000 people a year, and they're people who have physical challenges like blindness and deafness, and they're folks in wheelchairs and amputees, but more importantly, they're people with invisible challenges, emotional challenges, addiction, and anxiety and fear or depression. Poverty is a barrier, of course. Kids who have lost family members to war. So we help people break through all the barriers in their lives. And to me, that's been really the most exciting part of getting to climb mountains, is getting to come down the mountain and use my experiences to help elevate others.
Okay, thank you. So we are happy to talk any questions that anyone has, but that's why Eric is here. I think based on my people's reaction, I think that a room of 100 of my employees is now 100 different employees and very inspired and believing in the impossible. And so, you know, I'm very, very happy with what has happened today, and we're happy to have any questions from anyone in the press.
Yeah, don't raise your hands. I won't call on you if you raise your hand. You have to shout it.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, in today's generation where children are just put through iPhones and iPads, and you know, the way it's going with artificial intelligence, what guidance would you give from your experience?
With artificial intelligence?
No, the new generation with iPhones and
Oh, they're incredible. Yeah, iPhones are relatively accessible for the blind, and the Android and all the other smartphones. Yeah, they're very accessible. In fact,
they give up very easily.
hey Rob, do you have my
They
phone?
don't have that spirit of fighting and keep going on.
It's in my jacket. I'll show them a pretty cool app.
Sure.
yeah, one thing I think she's asked about is that this generation that's grown up with the technology may not have the mental toughness of
Yeah.
previous generations.
I agree. I struggle with this with my own teenager who is 16. And he's an incredible athlete, incredible football player. But yet, that generation... Oh, thanks.
They're putting down a
Okay.
quarter in front of us.
That generation, they are absorbed into their iPhones and absorbed into their iPads, and it pulls you away from this real world that's in front of us. So one of the things I've tried to teach my kids is to go into the outdoors. You know, I would bring my kids on rivers, and we would have camping trips. And my kids grew up, thank you, on rivers, making forts out of sticks and rocks and mud, and being covered in mosquito bites from head to toe, and just being happy, like little pigs running through the mud. And that to me is very, very proud, because my kids are creative and they know how to be leaders. They know how to problem solve. In fact, there was a book that came out, I think it was called like something like Last Child Left Outside. And they said, hey, you know, organized sports are fine, but if you really want your kid to be a leader and a creative person, put them over the fence in that little grove of trees or bushes, or that little creek that runs through the neighborhood, or that little sand dune, or that little wild area, and let them have time there to create and play. And that's what makes a real somebody who really has great creativity and leadership. So so no, I think technology is a double-edged sword. It's exciting, but it's also it also pulls you away from that no barriers life.
Question, Eric. So what was the lowest point in your life for you when you felt, okay, maybe I want to give up, I don't want to continue?
I mean, every experience has a low point, right? When I was learning to kayak, it was when I got sucked into a big, what's called a vortex, a whirlpool. And it was about 9 feet deep, and it pulled me out of my kayak and sucked me down and held me for a little while. And so, you know, that scares you, right? And then going up Everest, there's a section called the Khumbu Icefall. It's not designed for a blind person. It's jumbled up boulders of ice of every size imaginable. So there's always these moments where you feel like you're in over your head. And the problem is, I think your brain is there to really keep you safe. You know, your brain with the amygdala is there to try to keep you alive. And so it's not a very good judge of risk. And so your brain sort of sabotages you sometimes. So it pulls you away from the things you want to do. And sometimes you even get like a little bit of trauma. I think being alive, probably all of us have some trauma that we've been through. So that can be a major barrier as well in these processes.
So how do you take decisions in life? You know, is it more intuition or more analysis in general when you're making decisions? Because obviously, you know, taking something up like an Everest, as you said, even for somebody who can see, is a lot of hard work. So for you to say, this looks like a risk that I'd want to take, or am I just winging it and I got lucky? How do you make these decisions?
Well, you could write books about that. You know, if you weren't bold, you'd never reach the summit of anything. So I think it is about being bold, but I also think it's about minimizing your risk. And so I'll give you a good example. So I learned how to solo paraglide, you know, to run off of mountains. Yep. And sounds like crazy, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about it, it's very tactile. There's thermals that are rising up from the ground, these heat pockets, and your wing will respond to those, right? They'll dip and flow based on those thermals, and so you can actually use your wing, and you can use the thermals to navigate. Now, okay, steering and landing, right? Big deal. Those are very important. So I have 2 radios around my neck, one in case the other one breaks. And a person is on the ground, or maybe even 2 people that are talking me down. They're saying, you know, 90 to the left, 90 to the right, 45 to the left. They're steering me. And again, if both of those radios stop working, the person has a bullhorn that he can talk to me. And if the bullhorn breaks, or for some reason doesn't work, I have a string that I hang from my harness. And it's maybe 10 feet long with a bell, very heavy bell. And that bell will hit the ground first. I'll feel it hit. I'll flare my wing and I can time it such that I don't come in hard. So that's not one backup system, it's 3 backup systems. So I have never seen myself as a crazy person just doing things and winging it, hoping to live through it. It's the opposite of my approach.
And how long did it take you to plan the Everest climb?
Almost 3 months.
You're making it sound like a lot. 3 months is nothing. It takes years for people to actually, with a normal status.
Yeah, well, I trained for 2 years. I mean, and really I trained since I started climbing at 16. I was 33 when I summited. And I stayed fit for 2 years training. Climbing mountains, climbing peaks, like the tallest peak in Antarctica. That was like Fahrenheit. No, I think it's actually Fahrenheit and Celsius, 40 below zero. It was on the summit. So yeah, 2 years of really hard training, and then yeah, being on the mountain for almost 3 months.
Mr. James, what kind of support you give Eric?
In which respect?
Your role in Eric life. How come your role?
That's fine, you mean?
You mean it's fine?
Yeah.
Well, it's more of what support Eric's giving us. I appreciate him coming. We're old friends. When I called and said, "Are you willing to come out?" It needs to be at the end of the year. He was willing to clear his calendar and find the time. I mean, as you see with Eric, he doesn't need really any. I mean, all of us in life are handicapped. It's just a question of what is your handicap. My handicap is I got too much weight on my stomach and I'm a bit crazy, and I've got all my problems. Eric doesn't have sight, but he's got lots of other advantages. I mean, all we did, support-wise, was get him set up in hotels and get him traveling between Dubai and Amman, and obviously we brought Rob along, to help him with his presentations and with slides and things like that. But the real debt of gratitude is to Eric, not to me.
And Rob is over here. He's one of my climbing partners and taught me how to kayak. So Rob is one of my mentors. Where are you there?
Right
there
here.
You are. Yeah. He's my older brother too.
Younger brother.
My younger brother.
Just kidding, we're not related.
No, we're not. But also, Jim supported me, for instance, when I had a project to climb Kilimanjaro. I met a guy named Douglas Sidialo. He was Kenyan, and he had gone blind in the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombing in Nairobi. And he wanted to climb Kilimanjaro as a statement that peace always prevails over terror. And so he asked me to organize a climb. And so I invited Jim and his team and his friends. And they immediately stepped up and started training. And we all reached the summit of Kilimanjaro together. So it's about supporting each other. And Douglas was the first blind African to reach the summit. Which I thought was pretty powerful. It gives you extra motivation to want to reach the top.
Okay, Mr. Eric, what you did is kind of challenge to the life, to your case. But in the same side, in the other side of your case, we can find a lot of people have the same case, but they don't have any feel that they can do anything.
Right.
In your opinion, what's the reason they think that the life is over at this point?
Yeah.
The life is finished and they can't do anything after that?
My belief is that almost everyone starts out their life with optimism and belief in themselves. And then things happen along the way, right? I had great parents who supported me, but maybe you grow up without parents, right? So you don't have the right guidance. Huge barrier right away. You grow up in the foster care system, you grow up an orphan, you grow up with poverty, you grow up in violence, right? So already you have these massive barriers that start to infect you like a disease and get into your psyche and to start to the barriers on the outside start to become barriers on the inside. So for me, it's about how do you break down those barriers in life, in society, in the mind, in the teams. And so I've spent a lot of my life trying to figure out how to teach people how to tap into what they have. Today in the talk to Jim's team, I described it as a light. You can describe it however you want. You could call it the soul, you could call it the human spirit. Whatever that is, that strength that we can build inside of us. How do you tap into that? And I think everyone has it, but because of these things that happen to us, that light sometimes is almost out. And so it's about sort of strengthening it.
Are you ready to do the same challenge and climb to Everest again?
Well, see, I'm not a guide, so I have no reason to go back to Everest and do it again. I want to climb other mountains. I want to go back to a peak called Amana Blam that I failed at in the Himalayas almost 18 years ago. We're going climbing in Wadi Rum to climb these big 600-700 meter towers of rock, of sandstone in the desert. So for me, it's about setting my sights on new challenges, not the ones I've already done.
Thank you. What other extreme sports would you like to explore? Would you skydive?
I have skydived. I have about 100 solo skydives.
No way.
Yeah.
That beats my number. I got 50.
But you see, I'm not looking for ways to die, right? It's not about conquering. It's not about like what can I pick next that will be even riskier than Everest or kayaking the Grand Canyon. I think that's a really dangerous road. It's a dead end road, and it's an unfulfilling road, right? To just say I got to do something harder and scarier and bigger, and top myself constantly. I think that's just an unsustainable model.
So what's the model then?
The model is at the stage of your life and where you are in your life. What challenge will help you grow as a person? Will help teach you things that you need along the way, and make you a better teacher. So for me, it's not about like more risk and more difficulty. It's more about, now that I'm 50, my challenges aren't. I'm not motivated by the same thing that maybe when I was 16. For me, equal to climbing mountains and doing adventures is also I lead expeditions all around the world with our no barriers people. And to me, getting to spend time and interact with people with challenges and to help them figure it out is really rewarding. So it's whatever the different stages of our life is.
Speechless. Can't say more.
Okay, other questions, anyone? Okay, well, thank you. I mean, we're happy to stay around and answer more questions. If you want photos with anyone, that's fine. I think we've given a book to everybody, right, Rana? We have a book for you signed by Eric, his book, The Adversity Advantage. And thank you for coming, and I hope you're as touched as we have been touched. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.